Hello everybody, Mike with Spray Jones coming to you with another video. If you're new to this channel, I'm the owner of Spray Jones and I make videos educating the industry and people in general on spray foam insulation. Primarily concentrate a lot on closed cell 2-pound insulation because of its wide-ranging versatility, but we do some open cell half-pound foam as well. In today's video, I am going to be starting a new series called Let's Learn Spray Foam, and we're going to keep things simple, and I think we're going to break this down into 5 easy to understand videos. In this first video, we're going to do what is the difference between open and closed cell. The next video, part 2, will be what product is right for you. In video 3, we're going to do how is it sprayed on. Video 4, how should we be using the foam? We're going to concentrate on a little bit details, although there's a lot of details, so we're going to glaze over a lot of them to understand where things can go. And then number 5, we're going to do a combination of the customer, the client, the installer, and DIY. Basically, now that you've educated on foam, who should do what can go wrong, what can go right, and how hard is it to do all of this. Okay, closed cell foam. Polyurethane foam that we're going to call closed cell was developed in 1937 by a German chemist by the name of Otto Baer. At that time he came up with a polyol system where multiple chemicals would be combined and it would make a plastic foam, a cellular plastic foam. The first use of cellular foam was in Luftwaffe aircraft wings to replace metal struts. As the Germans were running out of metal, they found that the foam insulation, well, it wasn't insulation at that time, the polyurethane cellular foam was a very good structural element and could strengthen the wings. It wasn't until the 1950s that a lot of German technology came to North America, and polyurethane foam was discovered to be a very good insulator, a lot by accident, and in the 1950s and into the early 1960s, urethane foam cellular format was being used to insulate freezers and fridges. A lot of Philco was a large user of this in the emerging housing boom of the baby boomers in the 1950s. It wasn't until the late 1960s, well 1965 and then into 1968, that the first spray formulations were developed where it wasn't any longer a pour. It was going to be able to be sprayed out of a gun, and it was no longer multiple chemicals that were going to be needed in order to make one product. It was going to be what's called a 1-to-1 ratio, and that's something that's going to stick with us from now till the end of this series. All of our foams that we're spraying are a 1-to-1 ratio by volume, so that equal part of A and an equal part of B. When those two products meet and mix, they make the cellular foam plastic. The reason that we call this a closed cell foam is that the percentage of cells are not interconnected to each other. Enough of the cells are not honeycombed together, so therefore if the cells are not connected, they are in fact closed or individual cells, and therefore it can be deemed a closed cell foam. This is usually based on density, alright? It's not based on a chemistry type. All of the foams are going to be a polyurethane. Some of them have different blowing agents. Closed cell foam is usually going to be some type of a hydrocarbon or a fluorocarbon blowing agent. That's going to be mixed in with the chemistry on the B side, and what ends up happening is that in a cooler state, the product is liquid, stays liquid, and then when it becomes warmed, it goes into a gaseous state. It's called a phase change, and then that gas is what puffs up and expands and puts cells into the polyurethane, into the plastic mixture. So no longer do you have just a solid hard plastic film or plastic layer. You now have a cellular plastic layer. Well, it happens to be that this plastic cell network of blowing agent is a very good insulator. So the glue or the polyurethane is very sticky. It's very tenacious. It's going to stick to wood and rock and steel and glass and metal and all sorts of different building materials. Like polyurethane is one of the most common building adhesives in the industry. And then in the cellular format, in the cells of the foam, is trapped this gas. The fluorocarbon is trapped inside there, and as a result, that's the insulating. So just like you have a triple pane or dual pane window, what's the insulating layer between the panes? It's going to be argon. in between there, that's an inert gas. Well, now we have an inert gas. It's not oxygen based, it's not carbon dioxide based, it's an inert gas. And with that inert gas, inert meaning it's slow, lethargic on a molecular level, the molecules do not like to transmit and easily be excited, therefore it is a poor conductor of heat. So the gas itself is a poor conductor of heat. The honeycomb cellular network is a poor conductor of heat. The plastic is a poor conductor of heat. So if you add all of these things together, you have a very good insulation that goes on as a liquid, foams up, takes the contour and the profile of the substrate, expands. In this situation, a 1-to-1 ratio with modern day chemistry is expanding 25 times that goes on in the liquid mass under ideal conditions. And you now have an insulation, sticky glue mixture, honeycomb cellular network with gas, inert gas trapped inside of it that is nearly impervious to water and to air. And depending on how much gas and how much blowing agent that we put inside the chemistry, we can change the density. So the density can be, we're going to rate it in cubic feet. I think that's something that everybody can understand. If you had a cube and you put that cubic foot, 1 foot by 1 foot cubed, onto a weigh scale, what was it going to weigh? Most of our foams these days are going to weigh 1.5, 2, or 3 pounds per cubic foot. 1.5 isn't very common. 2 is the most common because it has the best balance of yield, meaning how many square feet can we get out of this set of foam. The higher that the density is, the less mileage that we get, right? So a 3-pound foam might be used or would be used on a roof, or where there's a surface that you're going to be walking on. You want a higher compressive strength. 4-pound density foam, not common, but might be used in a paneling situation or a shelving situation where the foam is going to be used in garage doors, what have you. So there's lots of different chemistry that can be placed in, and closed cell foam is by far the most versatile because it is going to be your all-in-one air barrier, your vapor barrier. It's impervious to water movement, air movement. It's going to adhere, and you're going to have a good insulation value, good mileage, and therefore you can get an enormous amount of square footage insulated with this product. And the closed cell foam predominantly has been the industry leader for better part of 50 years. Open cell foam. This product was developed for the first time in 1988 in Canada. Icynene was working on chemistry, as was the predecessor to Huntsman, which is Demilec, both Canadian companies. And they were working at that time on developing a lower density foam that would inevitably be open cell, meaning a high percentage of cells interconnected to each other meant it wasn't going to qualify as a closed cell foam. It would be more susceptible to water, not necessarily air movement, although it's not going to satisfy all of the white paper value for air barrier material or vapor barrier material on its own without secondary products. But what it was coming up with was a oxygen-based insulation. It's a water-blown foam. So rather than using a fluorocarbon, which is a derivative of hydrocarbons, it's going to use water. The water is going to stay, when cold, is going to stay in a liquid format. Then it's going to become superheated through the exothermic reaction of the A and the B meeting along with the heaters on the machine. It's going to actually boil the water. The water is going to convert from liquid to steam. That's called a phase change. And then that steam is going to puff and push open the cells, blow cellular format into the polyurethane, thereby creating a cellular plastic. And the density is going to come in at around 0.5 to 0.6 pounds per cubic foot. So we call this foam, in slang terms in the industry, half-pound foam or open cell foam. The principal use of this product is a spray-in-place alternative in the residential wood frame construction markets, a spray-in-place alternative to fiberglass insulation. So conventional 2x6, 2x8, 2x12s, large cavities, deep cavities, rather than putting a prefabricated bat into them. Now we're using the liquid applied foam in place polyurethane in a 0.5 pound per cubic foot density that's going to fill the cavity up completely full. The excess is going to be shaved off. In the beginnings, a lot of material was placed, overfill was placed. all of the material was shaven down flush. That created an enormous amount of waste, enormous amount of time for cleanup. So nowadays, a just fill cavity is what is desirable, where you're going to be leaving it 1 to 2 inches shallow of the dimensional framing, provided that you have enough. But it is a spray in place alternative to fibrous materials, where you're getting the better quality of offerings of foam insulation. So what do people want? They want it to stick. They want it to adhere. They want to take a negative or a perfect imprint of the cavity. So corners and brackets and odd shapes and different transitions from different types of building materials. And all these joints can now be overlapped with polyurethane foam. All the joints in the exterior sheathing and where the studs are going to be meeting outside walls. Every last seam is now effectively air blocked, where the air isn't free to come through the foam. Now, I know that open cell foam on its own is not going to classify as an outright air barrier material, but it is an air barrier. It slows the air down. Like, you're not going to get air through it. When you're dealing with specific instances of air barrier certifications, it's so many liters per cubic meter square, on and on and on. There's very technical definitions of how they test for it, and it has to be very specific. But you are not going to get a breeze blowing from the inward face to the outward side of open cell foam. Likewise, you're not going to get it come infiltration from out to in. So it is a highly effective air resistant material. And then from there, secondary products, depending on where you're located in North America, you could be using a liquid applied vapor barrier, could be using a sheet product vapor barrier like 6 mil polyethylene. In certain situations, you won't be using anything, and in even higher situations where you've built up enough of the product in enough density, meaning thickness of product, you've got enough vapor permeance to do what it needs to do for vapor diffusion on its own. But that's a whole nother video, a whole nother subject. I've actually got a specific video on open cell foam. Do we need a vapor barrier with this product? The spray in place alternative to fibrous is really what is desirable. It's going to be used in wood construction, roof, walls, in between floors for sound. It's an amazing product for sound. Just tenacious, grabbing onto the wood, removing impact sound transmission, resonance, and just sound waves, high frequency and low frequency frequency hertz are removed going through floor assemblies, wall assemblies, what have you. Where this product does not necessarily shine and is used for is subgrade, so not going in the ground, in contact with dirt, in contact with water, in contact with moisture, external of the building where it's going to be getting wet or being exposed to weather. So think about this in terms of where you're going to be placing conventional bad insulation or cellulose insulation or mineral fiber insulation, and then switch that out with the open cell half-pound foam, and you've got a winning combination. If I only could choose between bad insulation and open cell, I'd take the open cell every single day of the week. It's going to perform extremely well, stop the drafts, take a negative print of the space, and you're going to get a high maintaining insulation value, because air movement is the enemy of function. And I've said that on a few other videos, and we're going to be pushing that view home, that when you don't have things functionally working, they're not going to produce the performance results that you're looking for. So two great products in the spray foam world: your closed cell foam, which is usually going to be a 2 pound per cubic foot density. We call that medium density. It's going to be used indoor, outdoor, above grade, below grade. It's the most versatile, common, and longest lasting foam insulation in the industry since the 1960s. Till today, 2 pound density closed cell foam has been used in some type of residential or more or less commercial construction and industrial. A lot of industrial uses, tanks, vessels, roofing industry as well. So you've got your closed cell, you've got your open cell foam, which was originally first developed in Canada in 1988, really started to take off in the 90s, but I would say the open cell foam market really exploded in the mid-2000s with housing markets, where spray in place alternative to fiberglass was desired for roof and for walls, and it was very easy and quick to train and get people set up. There's not as much detail information to go over with OpenCell foam. If you want to know more specifics on OpenCell, I've got a video in a playlist entitled OpenCell foam, and you can watch the pros and cons of the product. We go over that, but in a nutshell, all you need to teach people to do is to fill the cavity up, shave it flush, and then install the secondary products, whether it's going to be vapor barrier or just drywall, sheetrock, or what have you. You're not detailing it out. There isn't the kind of ability to need to do it in multiple lifts. There's just a lot less technical information needing to be known about OpenCell foam over closed cell that we won't get into in this video. So in the next second part of this 5-part series, we're going to go over which product is right for you. We're going to go over locations, we're going to go over details, better, best. We're going to go over inside and outside. We're going to go in ground and above ground. We're going to get into all of that sort of stuff, where if we're going to be spraying a specific detail or a specific way, or going to be encountering specific resistances or problems or whatever we need to solve, which is the right of the two products that we would choose. So stick around for that one. I'm going to be trying to do a video a week, so within the next 5 weeks we'll wrap this up, and by the time springtime is going to start rolling around, you're going to be A1 on the spray foam information. Okay, thanks for coming around on this video. Thanks for liking and subscribing and sharing it with somebody, and thank you so much for leaving a comment, and we'll catch you on part 2.